What does it take to deliver great government services? It takes great policy, great delivery, and great operations. But traditionally in government, policy, delivery, and operations have operated as silos, handing off to each other and optimising for their own objectives, not overall service outcomes. This leaves each discipline with very little influence over the others. It locks in poor decision making and makes it difficult to learn and adapt. When this happens, you definitely won't get a great government service. Government outcomes won't be achieved, user needs won't be met, and the service will be expensive to operate. But there's a new model that's cutting through all this to deliver great services. Let me tell you about that. Having great policy, delivery, and operations is a good start, but it's not enough. You need these three disciplines to be collaborating closely, right from the point where the initial policy is conceived through to the end of life of the service. Policy has to work with delivery and operations to agree achievable outcomes and set sensible delivery and operational constraints. Delivery has to work with policy, for example, flagging up where policy choices are making it hard for users. And delivery has to enable operations, for example, automating manual operational tasks. Finally, operations has to work with delivery, for example, where the delivered service is causing failure demand. And operations also has to work with policy, for example, modelling the operational impact of upcoming policy changes. But even this isn't enough. You need good leadership that empowers teams. At Create Change, we work with government services to bring together policy, delivery, and operations as one team, working with an empowered service owner who has responsibility for end-to-end service outcomes. Bringing these three disciplines together under an empowered service owner means that it's easier to bridge the gap between policy and delivery and the gap between delivery and operations. Centralising accountability like this makes it easier for feedback to flow from each of these disciplines to the other, and it makes it easier to learn and adapt as you go. Bridging these three disciplines, empowering teams in a strictly hierarchical environment, and the fast-moving political environment that service owners encounter means this is a very difficult job. Service owners must also balance government needs and user needs. They must also work with enabling teams such as finance, HR, and commercial, who might not be aligned to the objectives of the overall service. They also have to attract talented civil servants and good quality suppliers. Finally, they have to create a great working environment that empowers their teams and allows them to thrive. Service teams also often have to work with governance and assurance activities, which might not be supportive of bringing together policy, delivery, and operations like this, or might not be comfortable with the agile, user-centered approaches that are essential for great digital delivery. If you're a service owner who's bringing together policy, delivery, and operations like this in an organisation where it's not been done before, you might also face scepticism from colleagues in policy, delivery, or operations including inside your team. In this case, you might want to gradually bring these disciplines together and show the benefits of doing so as you go. Another thing that I have observed is that this way of working isn't for everyone, because it requires people to change how they work. But what I've found is that if people give it a go, they often embrace it because it helps them do their work better. If your service is a ministerial priority, you also need a service owner who's sufficiently senior and experienced so that they can engage with ministers and influence them based on what their teams are learning. For bigger services, the service owner needs to build a leadership team to support them. And this should include specialists with expertise in policy, delivery, or operations. It's important to note also that many government services are discretionary, and in this case, you probably also want to bring in expertise from marketing or behavioural insight into your leadership team. Finally, you might also want to build a small enabling team to look after the financial, commercial, or HR aspects of your service. They can work with the central functions of HR, finance, and commercial as a bridge into their world where they may not have adapted their processes to deal with your ways of working. If the service is even bigger, you might want to think about appointing deputy service owners who can be responsible for one or more products within the overall service journey. In this case, it's really important that they're accountable for the policy, delivery, and operations of those products, not just one aspect of these. For even bigger services, it becomes untenable for a single service owner to hold all this stuff in their head. And it's very context dependent on what you do about that, but you might want to think about appointing multiple service owners who are accountable for different segments of the overall journey. When this is the case, you need to think about how you align end-to-end outcomes, how you build strong relationships, and how you define collaboration approaches between service owners and their teams. We've used OKRs in some departments to solve this problem. I hope I've shown that bringing policy, delivery, and operations together under an empowered service owner is a valuable thing to do, leading to better outcomes for government and for users. At Create Change, we've worked with service owners in this way since 2016. So if you'd like to learn more about service leadership or about bringing together policy, delivery, and operations, then please drop us a line. Thanks for watching.